I mean, I used to make this mistake myself a lot. It's just that my sensei said to me, "What are you doing on the dates?" He said, "Boring, boring. You're just like every other fucking guy she goes out with." So anyways, that was a little bit tough on my ego at the time, but I learned from it, and yeah, I'm not as dull when I go on dates, that's for sure, like I was when I first came here. Привет and welcome to Kiev on an absolutely splendid late July's evening. And in today's Vodka Vodcast with me, Connor Klein, I'm going to be diving into a topic that really makes me passionate, actually infuriates me. And that is the difference between a real man and a beta buck here in Eastern Europe, in particular in Ukraine, but also obviously in Russia and Belarus. That's when Western guys come here to date the beautiful women of Eastern Europe. And I'm going to go into 5 things that beta bucks do here that they should not be doing. They should be that real man. Now, I have done a primer on what a real man is. I'll link it up above in the card, down below in the description. And the genesis to today's vodcast is actually I have a consulting client who I'm coaching over a longer period, a couple of months. And previously, he had come here to Ukraine and actually used some matchmakers. Now, he is a Gen Xer. I would say he's pretty good looking, and obviously he was able to afford to pay these matchmakers, so he's not exactly penniless or something, but you know, they actually did him so much harm that I've actually had to spend a good bit of time coaching it back out of him, because they'd set the frame so badly and they had set him up for many of these different beta buck traits. Now, beta buck is obviously not what you want to be. You want to be more of a, I guess the normal dichotomy is alpha versus beta. It's not a great way to describe things. A lot of controversy about whether there's even such thing as an alpha male. Anyways, we won't go into that in today's video. Definitely the mindset that you need is that real man mindset. And beta buck, as we're going to describe it today, is making the mistakes that do not correspond to being a real man. So I really, really, really want to help you avoid these mistakes, because they are propagated as being the way to go when you come here by many of these matchmakers or marriage agencies. Now, I'm not talking the ones that are complete scams even. And maybe they just basically rob their clients, the scammy ones, but there are even ones where they try to help the guys to a certain extent. But the problem is the whole frame. I think the guys who run it, they are guys, sometimes it's women, they actually are basically maybe partly beta bucks themselves, and they don't even realize the harm that they're doing with the frame that they're setting up. So you want to be, in my opinion, maximizing your potential when you come here to Eastern Europe, because we have, I guess, beauty arbitrage, to a certain extent, international beauty arbitrage by moving and spending lots of time here in Eastern Europe. But if you're going to be a beta buck, then you're not going to reach your potential. And actually, even when I look at it, the matchmaking can be useful. I mean, it also exists in the West and exists, to say, in, I guess, in other cultures, because it's allowing connection, making that connection between two people. And even you could say like Tinder is kind of like a matchmaker in a sense, a very poor one, of course, in terms of success, in terms of percentage. So in my opinion, I don't really see them as adding any particular extra value than they would for you than if they were actually in the West, right? So matchmakers can, of course, help people. I mean, they help connect people. They can help maybe a little bit with coaching, but they're only really helping a specific person who is struggling to meet a match that they're happy with. So that could be here, for example, like single moms over 30. They are going to struggle on the local dating market because they're not considered high value. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. It's just that that's not what guys in general are looking for, especially the high status guys. So they go for this kind of arbitrage by maybe going to matchmaker, meaning a foreign man, right? A certain type of foreign man, normally a good bit older, and that can work, of course. Whilst as guys, well, at least you probably are coming to Eastern Europe because you're trying to exploit the beauty arbitrage, because there are a lot more beautiful women here, right? So it can help certain person, like person who's introverted, of course, and or maybe lazy, doesn't want to do any work. And you know, if you have a big value gap, then maybe it's going to work. Anyways, I've ranted on way too long about that point about the matchmakers. That's just to set the stage of what the the genesis for the idea of today's video is. Listen, the mistakes I'm about to go into, the 5 mistakes, these are mistakes just, you know, either I made them a lot or I made them just a little bit that I also made when I came here over 10 years ago. So I want to make sure that you start off with the right mindset. So let's dive into how not to be a beta buck here. So the first beta buck trait is pedestalizing women. Now, what does that mean? It means putting them up on a pedestal, raising them up as they are these perfect creatures, and you are this kind of like mere mortal, low-value male, you know, begging for their attention and their validation, right? So basically, you put the value, you set up the frame as the value. That's what beta bucks do, and it's just creating the perception of them being low value. It doesn't mean it actually corresponds. She actually might not be that high value as an individual or even on the local dating market. But if you beta bucks, especially when it comes to the West, because women are on average better looking here, they suddenly see, okay, back to use that scale of 1 to 10, maybe back in their hometown they're used to being with a 5, and now a 5 in Kiev is going to be like a 7 to them, so they start to worship them. And pedestalizing, I mean, that's obviously a very dramatic example, given it in a lot of other videos. So to give you a more concrete example that I used to do, and there's a particular reason for this, and I see it also in my coaching client a little bit, is, for example, a lot of guys, if they come here, they maybe want to meet a woman that they've been speaking to online, or maybe they met another trip here, and she lives in a small town, maybe 5 hours, we'll say, from Kiev. Now, for someone who's adventurous like me, actually going to that small town would be interesting, right? Just to go down there. But the problem is perception. That can, if you go to, let's just take Pavlohrad, it's actually in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, for example. Like, I wouldn't have any problem with going there. I'd actually find it interesting to go down for the day. But, you know, for a girl from there to think that a guy who comes from America, for example, is going to come all the way to Pavlohrad just to see her, like he has nothing else to do. Like, she is so important that he has to go all the way there. It's going to be interpreted as pedestalizing. So that's maybe an example that's not so obvious, right? And these are the mistakes I used to make, because I used to go to these small towns. Maybe I met a girl from there, so, oh cool, I'll go there. Now sometimes it obviously worked out, right? And I actually always had something else to do there, like, you know, I wanted to see the town. But it would be simpler in that situation, probably say, hey, come up to Kiev, you know, I'll take care of that in terms of we'll go out and we'll do interesting things together, whatever, set up a better frame, and not make it about that you're kind of like, she is the big prize basically, and that you need to go all the way out there. Women like to look up to men biologically in general. So if it looks like she's above you and looking down, it's unlikely to work. It's again about perception. You want to have it maybe that, you know, she's the one, and I'm going to get into about investing also later in the video. You want to make it something that she is going to think that you are slightly above her. That's just, for better or worse, how it works. And I think that's just universal in general. But as with everything here in Eastern Europe, it's more raw and more extreme than in the West. So that's a nice segue into beta buck trait number 2, which is trying to impress the girl and basically trying to, in effect, qualifying himself all the time to the woman. Now, the classic thing that a lot of the scammy agencies do, whether it's dating or whatnot, or even some of the genuine ones who just don't know any better, is they get the guy to show up on a first date with flowers. He's trying so hard to impress. He goes out and spends $50, $100 on flowers here in Ukraine. I have another video on whether it's a good idea to buy flowers on a date or not. Again, link it up above on a card there or down below in the description. But basically that is something that's given as advice. My own coaching, let's say, yeah, I was showing up with all these flowers, and man, that just looked like you were trying to impress her so much, right? You don't know this woman, you've never met her before. Maybe you had a little bit of cursory, you know, exchange in between, you know, you agreeing to the date and then showing up because it was arranged. But in general, if you're trying so hard to impress someone, it looks like you're lower value. So again, it's not going to end up in a situation where she's pedestalizing you. If you're trying too hard, it's basically going to end up that the perception is that you're pedestalizing her. So don't try too hard. That's beta buck number 2. And that's basically because, well, the reason that you're trying so hard, at least that's the inference, is because you don't have so many other options. Men who don't have very many options are seen as lower value by women. It's called pre-selection. Men who have a lot of options have abundance, and men who have less options have scarcity. And scarcity means that they try to invest, they try really, really hard to impress because they see this huge opportunity. And guys of abundance are basically like, yeah, whatever. There's another girl coming around 5 minutes later. Why would I try so hard? It's all about perception, remember. So the third beta buck trait is, of course, not leading. Big, huge one. here in Eastern Europe. I mean, if you were asking questions to a girl, unless it's very, very far into the relationship, like, what would you like to eat? What would you like to do? Finished. Over. Beta buck. 100% here in Eastern Europe. I have it in the Real Man Mindset video. Definitely go and check that one out after this if you don't understand what I'm talking about. Men lead. You're the man with the plan when you show up here every step of the way, and you lead and direct it. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be a complete asshole and rude all the time, but you definitely have to be assertive and leading the direction. And you can, of course, tailor that to how the mood is going, and also, of course, her preferences, but you definitely have to be the one in the driving seat behind the wheel about the direction that any sort of interaction is going. But that is one of the hardest things for me to coach out of Western guys, is to get them to lead. And a lot of them, they watch the videos on YouTube before they become a client, and I'm always amazed that then I look at, say, their messages, and I'm like, why are you writing this? Why are you asking her questions still? Don't you understand? Didn't you watch my videos that are for free here on YouTube? But yeah, sometimes it needs that personal coaching, of course, in person to actually make you execute it properly. So definitely that is a very important one to avoid. So the fourth beta buck trait here in Eastern Europe by Western guys is they're boring, as dull as dishwater, we say in English, at least in Ireland and in the UK. Most guys are very predictable. Unfortunately, us guys, I always like to say it's 97 or 95% of guys think the same way. Anyways, it's close to 100% of us. And that makes it very boring as a girl. Oh, here's another guy trying to get into my pants doing X, Y, and Z. He goes on 3 dates. He presses me with maybe even sending flowers or whatnot. And yeah, it's just a little bit not challenging, and it doesn't display, again, high value. So being boring, doing what everyone else does on a date. I've seen friends who's actually my sensei who taught me right back, in the beginning, not right at the beginning, but maybe about 4 or 5 years after I started coming to Eastern Europe. He, once he just took a girl out, they had met, and he put on some Latin music on his phone and started dancing with her on the street. And then they walked off somewhere else. I don't know. He just made it sound so much more fun, right? Of course, the girl was, first of all, very interested in him as kind of cool. She was excited. She had a lot of emotions going on because, sitting down, predictable. Now we go for a date. Now we go for a dinner. It's like every other date she's had. So doing something like that, I mean, that's a little bit more spontaneous and creative on the spot. I think it was also raining as well when he did it. So he went dancing some in the rain with her. And I've actually seen him do something else in St. Petersburg that was pretty amazing. We were actually at a bar, and he did the dancing thing again. It's actually probably a good tip. Learn how to dance. There's nothing about being a beta buck or obviously a real man, but he, yeah, remember we were there in a bar in St. Petersburg. There was 3 girls, and he started talking to one who was very standoffish, and basically he talked to her for just a little bit, 30 seconds, then played some music, started dancing with her, and this girl started to cry. She started to cry with so much emotion because it was something so different that she experienced, and he managed to, I guess, stimulate all those emotions. I'm not sure if they were all positive, maybe some negative ones were going on there because she started to cry, but her friends were shocked, absolutely shocked, because they'd never seen their friend react that way to a guy in the interaction. So anyways, that's a short little tip. Don't be boring. Don't be like all the other guys saying the same thing, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, I used to make this mistake myself a lot. It's just that my sensei said to me, what are you doing on the dates? He said, boring. Boring. You're just like every other fucking guy she goes out with. So anyways, that was a little bit tough on my ego at the time, but I learned from it, and yeah, I'm not as dull when I go on dates, that's for sure, like I was when I first came here. So last one is basically a little bit of a corollary of what I've said earlier on. It's like over investing, like, because you want to have beta bucks always over invest. They're the ones making all the effort. Yeah, they're the one, I mean, if they go to the marriages, they're the one paying huge money for the date. Well, the girl just shows up. And I know there's some agents actually get the girls to pay as well, a small amount, which is great there. That's actually a lot better. But, unless she's investing into doing something, and it doesn't have to be that she's going to pay, because obviously this is Eastern Europe, that's not the standard. Basically, guys pay on the dates and whatnot, right? So I'm not talking about that. Beta bucks always overinvest. This is pretty sad. Like, if the woman is not at least contributing something, right? It can be something very small. And maybe you've gone out a couple of times. Let me give a concrete example that I like to talk about. This is what I talk about on my premium program as well, Slavic Seduction Secrets, which is obviously a link down below. It's on demand. then we have what's called the borscht test, right? And that's basically whether the girl is going to be willing to make borscht for you. Obviously not on the first date, you can try that, but definitely wouldn't be boring if you went cooking the first time. But basically that she's willing to contribute in some way or do something. And is someone who's not investing in general into a relationship, is not really committed to it or that interested to it. So if what you see with beta bucks in general, that's a lot to do with the guys that get scammed here, is the fact that they are investing all the time. They're bringing her out to the restaurant, they're picking up, they're probably sending a, probably giving her cash for the taxi. She's asked for 500 hryvnia, which is about almost 20 US dollars, when the most it's going to be here is probably about $5 or $6, for example. So obviously someone's not investing at all in terms of their time, emotions, and normally it's not women who invest in money, it's going to be men definitely at the beginning of a relationship, 100%. But you get my point that if she is not investing something into it, other than the fact that she's brought to nice restaurants and taking Instagram videos, like my client also told me this happened to him at the beginning when he went on some of these dates with that were arranged for him here when he went to an agency. Basically, she's not interested, because a real man is going to make her invest in some way, going to get her to do something. It could be very small. It could be maybe bringing, I don't know, picking up something on the way in for her. Just to give you a small little example, maybe have a task that needs to be done, like it needs a little bit of research, it'll be quicker to do in Russian. Hey, can you do this for me? It takes 2 or 3 minutes, boom. If someone who's not willing to invest is gonna be like, why do I have to go for this guy just to look up on Google? Like, really, small investments. Obviously that's a very small example, but in general, beta bucks, they are the only ones investing. They overinvest way too much, and also too early. They're writing stuff like looking for validation. I look at the text of some consulting clients, and yeah, they've met the girl once and they're looking for, confirmation that she's really interested in them. No better way to turn off a Slavic girl, believe me. So those were the 5 beta buck traits that Western men have quite often that you need to avoid when you come here to Eastern Europe, to Kiev, and definitely to Odessa Mama, which is scam central. You're going to get eaten alive by those piranhas, figuratively, which are the Odessike, the girls of Odessa, because the scammer girls are going to find you if you're a beta buck, and they're going to stake all your money. Maybe they won't get all of it, but they'll get a lot of it. And that's why you see so many scams, whether it happens to you online or person. Basically, they take advantage of what are called in general in the dating world beta bucks. So avoid those 5 traits, and anyone coaching you to have any of those 5 traits is not doing it properly. Maybe they just don't understand that that's making them probably a beta and probably you a beta. So yeah, I think that's it. Write me down below what you think of what I've outlined today. Of course, I had those 2 primer videos. I referred to one of them earlier. What is a real man mindset? Go just check that out. It'll be up above, probably earlier in the card, down below. Also, Slavic mentality, intelligence, really useful. I think they're the 2 things that you need to get together, get on top of first to be really successful here in dating in Eastern Europe. So they are primer videos here on the channel for free for my premium content, which is Slavic Seduction Secrets, or you can consider a consulting call. Anyways, I always put all the links to all those options, how I can help you reach your potential here in Eastern Europe a lot quicker. And I'll end this because one of the matchmakers that I did refer to slightly unflatteringly earlier in the video, he does have a very good point, which is that the guys who do the best are the guys who move here. And that is what I've been focusing on more and more over the last year. So I also have my program, my premium program, Slavic Utopia Secrets Ukraine. It's for high-level guys who want to spend 3 to 12 months a year here in Ukraine. I have already another similar program for Belarus. Anyways, that's all down below and on demand as well. So if you are considering, to really give yourself the maximum chance, then think about moving to super free Ukraine, because this is the year of, well, it's already been over a year of all this coronavirus madness and mayhem in terms of traveling. As you can see, the light is starting to recede on my face because the sun has just gone over the other side of Maidan Square here in the center of Kiev. So I will see you very soon in the next video. Do побачення, до свидания from crazy Kiev, Ukraine.
SAR Experience.